The series begins with a group of middle school girls playing a boring game called Dawakin Ya Lamona. Whoever the ball lands on has to step out. The ball lands on a beautiful girl named Sunyong, and the teacher asks her to step aside. But Sunyong refuses. "Over my dead body, sir. Why do we have to play this dull game while the boys get to play football?" Full of energy and excitement. Not only that, they've taken 3/4 of the field while we're squeezed here next to your bench. The teacher senses a seed of a strong, independent girl in her, so he tries to calm her down, saying, "But girls actually love this game. That's why I let you play it. Isn't that right, girls?" The entire class chants in unison, "Yes, sir." Still wanting to embarrass her, the teacher asks Sun Young to introduce herself. She sighs, "Where do I even start, sir?" and tells him about her mother, a kind, generous woman who could never turn a blind eye to any child on the street, bringing them home, whether boys, girls, even stray cats. Once, she even adopted a baby girl. Yet, despite all that tenderness, she was never gentle with Sun Young herself. One time, Sun Young and her mother were eating at a restaurant along with one of the adopted kids. When the boy finished his plate, her mother gave him food from her own. Seeing that, Sun Young rushed to finish her plate quickly, hoping her mother would also give her a bite, just once, to feel that same warmth. But it never happened. As days passed, Sun Young began to hate going home. Back in the classroom, the teacher finally interrupts, saying, "That's enough, class is over. I can't spend 2 whole lessons listening to your family drama." The girls leave, and Sun Young still hasn't played football. Years go by, until the day of the principal's wedding. Everyone is joyful, taking pictures with the bride and groom. Meanwhile, Sun Young is calculating how much money she should put in the wedding envelope. Her friend Natasha comes over and asks, "How much are you giving?" 1,000, Sun Young replies. Natasha reminds her, "But Jay, the groom, was your university friend." "Fine, then 1,500. Sun Young sighs. Natasha adds, "It's an open buffet, expensive drinks, and the Korean hamobika is singing after the cake." Sun Young shrugs. "Well, since there's cake, 3,000 it is. No one's gonna stop me." The two sit down, calculating how much everyone at the wedding will give and how much the couple will collect in total. But afterwards, Sun Young mutters, "I'll never get that money back anyway, since I'm never getting married." Natasha laughs and flashes her engagement ring. "Well, I will." Sun Young suddenly feels like the only woman on Earth destined to remain single. Then she goes to greet the groom, Jay. He forces a smile, but in his heart he thinks, how shameless. Who comes to her ex's wedding? Yes, that's right. Jay was Sun Young's ex. They'd broken up just 6 months ago. She says sarcastically, "Wow, you moved on so fast. Already in love, engaged, and married? When did that happen?" Jay snaps back, 3 months ago, spinster. Go inside. Maybe you'll find a man who notices you and finally marries you." We leave them there and move to a job interview at a multinational company. A handsome young man named Hyan sits in the middle. He explains that he wants to work there because he grew up an orphan in one of the homes sponsored by this company, and now he wants to give back. The panel keeps throwing tricky questions at him, but Hyan answers each one with confidence, speed, and professionalism. Then it's the female candidate's turn. Instead of fair questions, one interviewer asks, "Wouldn't it be better for you to just get married and stay at home?" Another adds, "This job requires travel. Would you abandon the children you haven't even had yet? That would make you a terrible mother." And the senior manager tops it off. "If your boss were to harass you without realizing it, would you scream and cause trouble for the company? Or follow the rule that the boss is always right?" The girl freezes, unable to respond. The third interviewer is asked if he would believe her if she reported harassment, or if he'd tell her to stay quiet. He too cannot answer. But Hyun calmly steps in. That's simple. With tools like cameras and voice recordings on phones, a woman can easily prove what happened. Then he pulls out his phone, revealing that he's been recording the entire interview. The manager explodes. That's forbidden. But Hyun cuts him off. So if she proved it really happened, of course I'd take her to the prosecutor's office and sue the manager. The outcome is obvious. Those 3 toxic interviewers are immediately dismissed from the process. Hyun apologizes to his fellow candidates, but they tell him not to worry about it. We then return to Sun Young at the wedding, when suddenly she gets a phone call from the hospital where her mother, who suffers from Alzheimer's, is staying. The nurse asks her to come because her mother has been refusing to eat. Sun Young agrees, then returns to the wedding. She sits watching the guests and drinking heavily, determined to get her money's worth for the large amount she contributed. At that moment, she remembers 6 months earlier when she had told Jay, the groom, that she couldn't continue their relationship and that it had to end. Jay was in shock, insisting he couldn't live without her. but Sunyong had made up her mind. She turned her back and walked away. Jae tried to chase after her, but fell, injuring his hands. She stopped, returned to him, gently wiped his wound, and placed a small medical bandage on his hand. We focus on this bandage because it will matter later. After that, she said her final goodbye and left. Back in the present, Sunyong snaps out of her thoughts when suddenly a big screen appears at the wedding, showing videos and pictures of the couple's relationship timeline. To her horror, she realizes that Jae had been with his bride for an entire year, while still dating her. Even worse, in one photo, she spots the exact same bandage she had placed on his hand. The sight makes her furious. She wishes she could break his arm. We then learn the truth. Jae wasn't upset at all about breaking up with her. In fact, he had wanted to leave her, but didn't know how. The other girl's father was a powerful company executive, so being with her was more convenient. Enraged, Sunyong stands up in the middle of the wedding, eyes blazing. She pulls the tablecloth off a nearby table, wraps it around her skirt like a makeshift wedding dress, and strikes dramatic poses. She even goes to take pictures with the couple, boldly telling the bride, "I used to be his lover." Later, at home with her younger adopted sister and her friend Hui, she opens a box she brought from the wedding. Inside is the bride's bouquet. She vents about what Jae had done, cheating on her while being engaged to someone else. But we discover that her dramatic stunt at the wedding was only in her imagination. In reality, she had only posed for a normal photo, like everyone else. When the bride threw the bouquet, Sunyong happened to catch it. Her friends try to comfort her but admit that her personality is unusual. We also learn more about her past relationships. Before Jae, she had kicked out another boyfriend, humiliating him until he left. 3 years earlier, she dated another man, but she constantly belittled him for not having a steady job. To her, he treated her house like a public bath, coming only to shower, change clothes, and leave. Meanwhile, we see Hyan again. He lives in the same neighborhood as Sunyong. When he notices police officers putting up wanted posters of criminals, he offers to help. The officers thank him, praising him as an angel who always does good deeds. He then goes further, giving the posters to sanitation workers to place on their trucks. That way, more people will see them, and the workers can recycle the paper later. The workers are grateful, calling him an angel too. Later, Sunyong and her friend Hui are out together. Hui asks, "Why don't you like dealing with Hyan? He's such a nice guy." But Sunyong insists, "He's the one who doesn't like me. That's his loss. If he doesn't love me, then too bad for him." Not long after, she sees Hyan working at a supermarket, wiping down the glass doors. With her face covered in moisturizer, she presses her palm against the glass he's just cleaned, then boldly walks inside. She asks for a certain dessert she loves, but it isn't available. Hyan teases her until she storms off, annoyed. The next day, we shift focus to Sunyong's younger adopted sister, who works as a novelist. She uploads the final chapter of her story online. When she checks the comments, she finds endless criticism and insults, except for one user named the Black Falcon, who praises her work. Meanwhile, we move to Director Park's wealthy family. During breakfast with his parents, his mother, who is obsessed with novels, keeps reading even at the table. His father tries to talk to her, but she slyly says, "The best thing about novels is that the hero always loves only one woman and never betrays her." Her husband immediately goes silent. Afterward, the father speaks privately with his son, Director Park. He tells him that their mall ranked second in Korea's revenue this year. If Park doesn't bring it to first place within a year, he'll be forced into an arranged marriage. Park is left speechless. He doesn't want to marry at all. At the same time, in Director Park's office, his assistant, Do, is struggling to send him an email, requesting a transfer to another department. Assistant Yu had actually studied business administration, but Park kept him as nothing more than an assistant. When Director Park arrives at the office, he looks visibly upset and calls Yu in. He tells him that if within 1 year he doesn't achieve the #1 spot in sales, his father will force him into an arranged marriage. But Yu replies confidently, "Marriage? That's impossible for you, sir. As for reaching first place in sales, that's easy. But marriage? No way. You don't date, you don't love, you don't even like interacting with women. So it's better if we just focus on winning that first place sales spot." When Park asks Yu to help him, Yu seizes the opportunity and says he will, but only if Park transfers him to the design department. Park refuses. Instead, he warns Yu that he'd better help him where he is, or else he'll fire him from the company altogether. Meanwhile, at the same company where Sunyong works, Jae has just returned from his honeymoon. He's distributing gifts to his colleagues. Sunyong sits with her friend Natasha, who only feels more bitter when she learns from her that the company offers huge benefits to married employees: bonuses, more paid leave, shorter working hours, allowances for every child they have, generous health and social insurance, contributions toward children's education, and sometimes even private school tuition. On top of that, the honeymoon itself is fully paid by the company. Sunyong feels this is deeply unfair. She goes to Jae, asks him to talk privately, and hands him a note calling him a pathetic, worthless man. But what matters most to her isn't the insult. It's the 3,001 she spent on his wedding. That money was wasted on you, so give it back. Jae tries to explain that he doesn't have the money now and that he can't pay her anything. Sunyong warns him that if he doesn't, she'll tell his wife everything about their past relationship. But Jae doesn't care. He smirks and tells her, "I'll give you the money back when you get married, if you ever do." Then he walks away. We then learn the truth. Sunyong had left Jae not just because of his low salary, but also because 6 months earlier he had asked her about her mother, if she was the only one responsible for caring for her. Realizing she would only become a burden on him, she decided to leave. Later, at the company cafe, Sunyong calls Jae one last time to demand her money. He refuses again. This time she tricks him. She calls his wife at the same time and lets Jae overhear her voice. Jae panics, literally running through the office, jumping over barriers, crashing into people, and racing down 15 flights of stairs because the elevator was too full. When he finally arrives, he finds his wife sitting with Sunyong, clearly impressed by her. Jae thinks to himself, "It's over. I've been exposed." But instead of confrontation, he sees that Sunyong has given his wife a wedding gift, a recycled bouquet turned into a candle. His wife is delighted. Afterward, Jae falls to his knees in front of Sunyong, begging for forgiveness. He admits he truly can't pay her the money. His wife controls every penny of his finances and knows exactly what comes in and out. Furious, Sunyong storms off. At the same time, Assistant Yu takes initiative. He issues a company-wide announcement. Any employee with a new idea or project to increase sales can submit it, and the project will be personally supervised by CEO Park and his father, the company chairman. Park is pleased with Yu's cleverness. Yu asks again to be transferred to the business department since he has a master's in business administration. But once again, Park refuses. He needs him by his side. When Natasha sees the announcement, she tells Sunyong, who immediately gets excited. She has many creative ideas that could boost sales. But Natasha warns her, "You're talented and hardworking, but it's impossible they'll accept your project." The CEO's wife knows he's a flirt. She'll never allow a beautiful single woman like you to work directly with him. At the very least, you'd have to be married. Sunyong feels crushed, deciding she might as well quit the company. But the moment she sees Director Park passing by, she changes her mind. She isn't going anywhere. That evening, she heads to the supermarket where Hyan works. She grabs a drink and steps outside to calm her nerves. Inside, Hyan is busy stocking the refrigerators. The sight reminds him of his grandmother. We see a flashback of her final days in a nursing home, suffering from heart problems caused by years of smoking. She asks him about his life in the orphanage. From her words, we learn that his mother became pregnant with him while she was still in high school, from one of her classmates. The moment he found out she was pregnant, he abandoned her and ran away. Not long after, his mother died. And since then, the only one left to raise him was his grandmother, who now lies sick in the hospital and never leaves it. His grandmother was always deeply upset with his mother, even after her death, because of what she had done. And before her condition worsened, she made him promise that when the time came, he would marry a good-hearted, humble girl who never smoked. He snaps out of these thoughts and suddenly notices Sunyong staring at him through the glass of the fridge door. When he speaks to her, she bluntly tells him that she's desperate to find a groom and wants him to marry her. But of course Hyan refuses. He reminds her of his grandmother's will, that he must marry a humble, kind girl who doesn't smoke. And Sunyong has none of those qualities. She tries to argue that she is kind and humble, but Hyan shuts her down immediately. He tells her he has worked here for over 6 years and has seen exactly how she behaved with the men she dated before. Arrogant, conceited, and always acting superior for no reason. Sunyong feels crushed by his harsh rejection. The next day at work, she presents her project file but keeps stressing over wedding expenses, realizing they're far too high. Later, she runs into her friend Natasha and instantly senses Natasha is hiding something. True to form, Natasha can never keep a secret. She blurts out that she discovered who Director G's wife really is. It turns out to be none other than the daughter of the head of the projects department, who also happens to work with them. At that very moment, we see this woman entering the elevator. Mr. Park joins her, snatches her juice, and starts joking and teasing her. We learn they've been friends since childhood, and her mother is a close friend of Director Park's mother. Meanwhile, Assistant Yu tries to upload his project file to the company's system, but the director catches him in the act. He tells Yu that he's blocked his email to stop him from submitting anything. He warns him not to bother. Yu insists that maybe if Park found a woman and got married, his problems would be solved. But Park refuses. Later, Ji's wife summons Sunyong to the meeting room. When she arrives, Ji is there too. Sunyong panics, imagining that Ji's wife must have found out about her past relationship with him. She even pictures Ji's wife throwing coffee in her face. But in reality, nothing happens. Ji's wife explains that she reviewed both their projects and discovered that they are 90% identical. Sunyong immediately remembers. Back when she was dating Ji, she had shared the idea of her project with him. It was a simple gaming app designed to be useful and easy for people. At the time, he had dismissed her idea, but now she realizes he stole it. Ji's wife orders them to work it out and for one of them to step aside and give the idea to the other. After the meeting, Ji follows Sunyong, trying to pressure her into giving up the project. He insists that as a man, he is more capable of executing it. Sunyong refuses. His tone then turns dark. He threatens her. He reminds her that he's married to the director's daughter. If she doesn't comply, he'll twist the story, claim she threw herself at him, accuse her of stealing the project, and ruin her with a scandal. He leaves her shaken, but Sunyong storms after him, stops the elevator, and in front of everyone boldly declares that his threats mean nothing, because in just 1 month she'll be married. She walks away, leaving him stunned. She then focuses on preparing for her wedding hall, listing everything she'll need. By the end of the day, she approaches Hyan again, pleading with him to agree to the fake marriage. She promises it won't cost him anything, speaking with calmness and humility. But as she's talking, a noisy group of young customers cause chaos in the store. Unable to control herself, Sunyong snaps, yelling at them so viciously that they leave in fear. Hyan shakes his head, telling her there's no hope for her. He'd never marry her, not even in a fake marriage. Sunyong walks away heartbroken but continues with her wedding plans anyway. She prepares the invitations, calculating exactly how much she'll collect from each guest. When her friend learns the wedding is fake, she is outraged. She accuses Sunyong of devaluing marriage, reminding her that true marriage should be built on love and affection, just like hers. But Sunyong doesn't care. All she wants is to get married and move on. Her friend finally loses her temper, telling her she won't attend the wedding and storms off. And just then, Sunyong's sister enters. She went after her, trying to reconcile, but her sister firmly told her she needed to act maturely and have a say in things. Just because she was an adopted daughter didn't mean she should be treated like she was worthless. That reminder took her back to the time when Sunyong's family had adopted her, back when she was still in middle school. The day Sunyong first saw her, she was shocked. Their mother explained that they had taken her in because her situation was terrible. But Sunyong had lashed out at her mother, saying, "I'm in my final year of high school, and instead of focusing on me, you went and adopted another girl?" Then she walked away, her heart breaking. Meanwhile, Hui was upset and tried to call her boyfriend, the owner of a recording studio. But he didn't answer, because at that very moment, he was cheating on her with a girl wearing big hoop earrings. What a perfect husband. Indeed. The next day, Hyan was sitting at home, eating with his cat, when Sunyong passed by him without so much as a glance. Later, while fetching supplies from the storage room, Hyan came across a shady-looking guy. The man tried striking up a conversation, but Hyan ignored him. When the man tried to provoke him further and invited him to join his business, we learned the truth. He lured girls online, manipulated them, and then blackmailed them for money. Hyan already knew what he was, and that's why he despised him, so he kicked him out immediately. At the same time, Sunyong was busy searching for a wedding hall. After checking 3 venues, the only thing that mattered to her was finding the earliest date, but none were available before 4 months. Then suddenly, she got a call. One hall had an opening. She rushed there with her food in hand, only to realize she'd left her phone behind at the restaurant. Meanwhile, Hui was at her boyfriend's studio, since she worked in sound recording. After finishing, she noticed those same large hoop earrings sitting on the couch. Yet she said nothing, pretending she hadn't seen them, and spoke to him as if everything was normal. She even started telling him about her fight with Sunyong, until she got a phone call that left her trembling. Back at the hall, Sunyong and the girl finalized all the wedding arrangements. But when Sunyong went to retrieve her forgotten phone from the restaurant, she found dozens of missed messages. The moment she read them, she rushed straight to her mother's hospital. Her mother hadn't eaten for 2 days and had fallen into a nervous breakdown. When Sunyong arrived, she found her mother screaming at and even striking the nurses. Sunyong stayed with her until she calmed down and fell asleep. Later, we learned the hospital had tried calling Sunyong repeatedly, but since she didn't have her phone, they eventually called Hui instead, because Sunyong had given them her number in case of emergencies. This brought the two women back together, reconciling. That same night, the con artist showed up at Hyun's supermarket, bragging about a crazy woman desperate for a husband, and that she would be his next victim. He pestered Hyun again, but when Hyun handled his phone for payment, he noticed the woman the scammer was targeting was none other than Sunyong. The man had even sent her a message asking to meet. Hyun pretended to drop the phone, then deliberately stomped on it, shattering it. The scammer exploded in anger and picked a fight. The next morning, while on her way to work, Sunyong was stopped by Hyun. He told her he agreed to her marriage proposal. She was stunned, but he had one condition. She had to take in his cat and raise it in her home. He'd provide the food, water, and everything else. The reason? His manager hated cats and he couldn't care for it alone. With no other choice, Sunyong reluctantly agreed. Later that day, Hyun returned home to find the scammer waiting outside. The man was baffled. Why had the crazy woman suddenly stopped contacting him? He tried provoking Hyun again, but as always, Hyun ignored him. Inside, however, Hyun kept telling himself this arrangement with Sunyong would only last a single day. Once the wedding was over, it would all be finished. The next day, Sunyong woke up full of energy. She was going to pick out her wedding dress. She told her younger sister, who asked if she could come along, but Sunyong brushed it off, not wanting to make the matter seem bigger than it was. She stopped by Hyun's shop to take his measurements, height, weight, and so on. When Hyun realized she was going alone to choose the outfits, he felt bad for her and decided to accompany her. He tried making conversation, but she was too absorbed in her wedding details to notice. At the shop, Sunyong tried on a dress that was so awful and ridiculous that even the store clerk couldn't contain her laughter. She slipped away, leaving the two of them there together. While Hyun looked on, he asks her why she chose such an ugly dress, but Sunyong tells him that she wanted all eyes to be on her, so no one would pay attention to him or remember his face, because she doesn't want him to get stuck with the pointless label of the husband. At that moment, Hyun realizes he had judged her unfairly, because in truth, she was only trying to protect him and his reputation. Meanwhile, Sunyong's younger sister goes to meet the editor who publishes her novels, and with them is someone very familiar, the Black Falcon. Shockingly, it turns out she is actually Director Park's mother. Both women are delighted to meet again. But by pure coincidence, Assistant Yu and Director Park also arrive at the same cafe. Sunyong's sister quickly hides so Yu won't see her, leaving us still in suspense about her connection to him. Even Park's mother panics when she sees him and hides until they leave. Back to Sunyong, who is choosing another dress while Hyun tries on his suit. Unexpectedly, Director Jae and his wife walk in, also shopping for wedding clothes. Jae's wife is thrilled to see Sunyong, and even more excited when she learns the wedding is in just 3 weeks. Jae, however, is stunned to discover Sunyong is really getting married. Right then, Hyun steps out to show his suit. Sunyong desperately tries to stop him, but Jae's wife insists on seeing. When Hyun finally appears from behind the curtain, everyone is left speechless by his elegance, including Sunyong, who can't take her eyes off him. The moment Sunyong says Jae's name, Jae remembers that night 6 months ago when he sat with her outside the supermarket where he worked. They talked for hours, and when he asked about her mother, he realized that the man now standing before him is none other than Sunyong's fiancé. Hyun continues to try on suits, each one more stunning than the last. Everyone, especially Sunyong, is captivated. She never expected the humble supermarket worker to look this handsome. Even Jae's wife is dazzled, while Jae himself begins to boil with jealousy but hides it behind sarcasm. When Hyun politely addresses Sunyong as "my lady," Jae mocks him, but Jae's wife sweetly assumes it must be a nickname. She then asks how long they've known each other, and Hyun quickly saves the situation by saying, "Since school." Later, when they leave, Sunyong scolds Hyun for not warning her about how handsome he really looks. She complains that his looks will outshine her at the wedding, making everyone remember him instead of her. Suddenly, a random woman passing by tells Sunyong she should be thankful to have such a handsome man instead of a toothless husband. But Sunyong still sulks. They go for a drink, and Hyun sweetly orders her something delicious instead of coffee. They talk about the wedding until Hyun suddenly asks if Jae was her ex. Sunyong is shocked. How does he know? Hyun explains that he knows everything about her. Her address, her job, her age, her friends, even every man she ever dated. but she realizes she knows almost nothing about him, not even his age. At that moment, Hyun's expression hardens and he quickly changes the subject. Meanwhile, Jae and his wife are on their way home. She keeps talking about Sunyong and her fiancé, but Jae is lost in thought, replaying everything. He can't stop wondering how Sunyong met this man and why they rushed into marriage so quickly. His wife suddenly asks if he's jealous. After all, Sunyong is strong, independent, successful, and beautiful. Exactly the type of woman he has always admired. Jae denies it, but deep inside, regret is slowly killing him. The next day, Director Park's mother is deeply engrossed in reading Sunyong's sister's novel on her iPad. When Park greets her before heading to work, she quickly hides it. Seizing the moment, Park tries to convince her to change her harsh company rules, that unmarried women cannot get promotions or propose projects. But she scolds him, warning him never to even think about it again if he cares about his career and the company's reputation. At the office, Park vents to his assistant D, though as usual, D barely pays attention. Just then, Sunyong steps into the elevator with them, handing out sweets and wedding invitations. She introduces herself to Park, giving him both the candy and the invitation. Park curtly says he'll attend, just to give her the traditional envelope of money. Sunyong thanks him warmly, while Park mutters bitterly about all these people rushing into marriage. Assistant Yu calmly explains that the extra benefits married employees receive are enough to push anyone into tying the knot. He asks his friend to attend the wedding in his place and deliver the envelope because he hates weddings. Meanwhile, Soyeon finishes her errands and rushes to the office meeting. There, her manager reminds her of something crucial she forgot. She didn't put a photo of her handsome fiancé on the invitation. To make things worse, Murad had already bragged to the whole company about how stunning Soyeon's fiancé is. Jae, seizing the chance to mock her, smirks and asks where her engagement ring is. Does that mean he never actually proposed? He then mocks her publicly, suggesting maybe she was the one who proposed because she was in such a hurry. Soyeon remembers the truth. She was the one who asked Hyun to marry her. But being clever, she laughs it off and tells everyone they'll see everything in the wedding video. Later that day, she goes to Hyun's supermarket. But instead of greeting her warmly, Hyun coldly tells her to pick what she wants and leave. He's frustrated because all the customers avoid the store when she's around. Soyeon tries to convince him to officially propose, but Hyun refuses and even tries to throw her out. Desperate, she blurts out, "What about the baby? Didn't you ask me to take care of the baby? Is this how you treat me after everything?" Some young men overhear and whisper that they never expected Hyun to behave this way. But before the misunderstanding gets worse, Hyun picks up his cat, which he calls Baby, and says, "Here's the baby," before slamming the door in her face. Soyeon doesn't give up. She sets up fake dates, eating at restaurants while recording herself with a hidden camera, pretending her fiancé is the one feeding her. She films herself on outings with a selfie stick, acting as though he's walking beside her. Even in the supermarket, she pretends he's behind the camera while a worker secretly eats the food for her. Later, she proudly shows the videos to her friends. They admit the editing is great, but say the clips feel lifeless. There's no real spark. One even offers to lend her photographer boyfriend for better shots. Her sister suggests using old photos with her ex and photoshopping Hyun's face onto them. Though she still has those pictures, Soyeon refuses, terrified someone will uncover the truth. Meanwhile, Hyun gets a mysterious call from a woman. She urges him to come to Canada, promising him better opportunities. But Hyun refuses, telling her to stop contacting him because he's about to get married and wants a quiet family life. He hangs up, clearly upset, and we're left wondering, who is this woman? The next day, Soyeon goes to a jewelry shop, buys herself a wedding band, and even picks out a ring for Hyun. She heads to the supermarket, but the place is empty. Suddenly, the doors slam shut, the lights cut out, and she panics. A faint glow appears on the floor with arrows leading her forward. Heart racing, she follows them, until she sees it. Hyun has arranged yogurt cups to spell out, "Will you marry me?" Her fear melts into joy. A toy train chugs toward her carrying a teddy bear, followed by a candy ring. Hyun steps out and proposes, surrounded by shelves filled with her favorite sweets. One's no longer in production, which he'd tracked down from every store just for her. Overwhelmed, she says yes. Later, she asks why he changed his mind. Hyun admits, the woman from Canada won't stop asking him to move there, and this was the only way to end it. When Soyeon asks if the woman was his ex, Hyun grows tense, saying it was years ago and he barely remembers. Seeing his discomfort, she changes the subject and slips the wedding rings onto both their hands. That evening, her sister and Hui watch the couple's new video and can't stop smiling. It radiates love. But elsewhere, Director Park is about to drink tea when he stumbles upon his mother's iPad, still open on the romance novel she had been reading. He scrolls through and is utterly shocked by what he finds. 2 days later, the long-awaited wedding of Soyeon and Hyun begins, as she joyfully hands out. The responsibilities were divided among them. For example, Hui was in charge of guiding the guests to the hall. Meanwhile, her writer sister slipped away to the bathroom, pretending to talk on the phone. She spread the story that Hyun's family lived in Canada, so naturally, no relatives could attend, all to keep people from gossiping. As for Sunyong, she personally welcomed the guests. When Hyun arrived and saw her in her dress, he lit up with joy, imagining that she was waving at him. But in reality, Sunyong was waving at his wife, who was dazzled by both Sunyong's beauty and the wedding itself. When they asked about the groom, it was revealed that they had agreed for him to show up late, so no one would see him beforehand or try to chat with him endlessly. Meanwhile, inside the bridal photo room, it was Sunyong's mother who stayed behind, happily taking pictures with the guests. Hui and Sunyong's sister were overjoyed to see their mother glowing with happiness. Sunyong had even invited everyone her mother had fostered over the years. After a while, everyone gathered inside the hall. Sunyong stood waiting for Hyun, and from across the hall, she noticed the bride standing beside her father, a man glowing with both pride and nervousness. The sight stirred memories of her own father, how kind he had been. She remembered when, after Sunyong's writer sister was adopted into their family, her father sat her down and explained how hard that girl's life had been. But Sunyong had told him she needed more of his time, since soon she'd be off to college, then married, and they wouldn't have much time left together. Her father laughed, promising that after all of that, he would dedicate all his time only to her. Yet Sunyong never believed him, and that disbelief would later become her deepest regret. As she was about to leave, she realized the other bride had noticed her. Sunyong turned to go, but twisted her ankle and her shoe slipped off. Hyun rushed to put the shoe back on her foot, and together they entered. Everyone was mesmerized by their presence, their beauty, and every detail. At the end of the wedding, Sunyong's sister and Hui gathered the envelopes and money. Just then, Hui's fiancé told her he couldn't go out with her that night because of important work. But Hui knew very well he was off to meet the woman he was cheating with. She stayed silent, escorted him to his car, and when she hinted that she knew about the other woman, he brushed it off and acted clueless. As for Sunyong and Hyun, they finished the wedding and stepped out of the hall. Hyun told her he wished her a peaceful life, took off his ring, and said they should finally part ways. The game was over, and everything between them was finished. Yet Sunyong couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't want him to go. Just as Hyun turned to leave, they suddenly found Director Park and his wife waiting with their car. His wife invited them to ride along since they hadn't hired a wedding car. Sunyong tried to avoid it, claiming she had already called an Uber. But then came the devastating blow. Director Park's wife revealed that they were headed to the exact same hotel the company had booked for Sunyong and Hyun, and they would be spending the night there as well. They'd surely run into each other. Realizing she couldn't back out, Sunyong begged Hyun to do her one last favor, take her to the hotel, and then leave. Hyun reluctantly agreed, put his suit back on, and they got into the car. Along the way, Director Park's wife kept interrupting and pestering them, making the ride even more awkward. Meanwhile, before leaving the hall, Sunyong's sister noticed a man arrive late, handing her a wedding envelope. To her shock, it was none other than Assistant Yu. It turned out he and Sunyong's sister had known each other since high school. He still remembered her name, and she nearly fainted with happiness. She had always admired him. He even recalled that she loved writing children's stories and asked if she still wrote. She shyly admitted she still wrote, but not for children anymore. At that very moment, Director Park was reading her latest novel, stunned that his own mother could be into such books, filled with explicit scenes meant only for adults. Back at the hotel, Sunyong and Hyun arrived just as Director Park and his wife did. They kept watching the two so closely that they even ended up riding the same elevator. Each time Director Park tried to act romantic with his wife, Sunyong would glare at Hyun, forcing him to play along with some romance of their own. When they finally reached their rooms, they discovered their suites were right next to each other. Sunyong hurried to say goodbye to Hyun so he could leave, but before he could, Director Park suddenly stepped out of his room. Desperate, Sunyong quickly pulled Hyun inside with her. With no other choice, Hyun had to spend the night in the same room. That night, he remembered when the photographer once asked him to hug Sunyong's mother for a photo. Strangely, she had called him by the same nickname his grandmother used for him. And in that moment, Hyun had broken down in tears, whispering, "Yes, it's me." And with that memory, the scene shifted back to Sunyong's sister and Assistant Yu. who had gone to a cafe together, reminiscing about their school days, especially when the teacher used to punish her for writing. She was skipping class, sitting quietly and writing children's stories. Assistant Yu, who had also been punished by the teacher, came and sat beside her. That was the very first time they spoke. When he saw how cold she looked, he took off his jacket and placed it over her knees. He even held the paper that had the words of apology written on it, something they both ended up keeping for a long time. Just then, the writer's guardian arrived, and it turned out to be none other than Sunyong, back in her university days, still reckless and wild. Yu was shocked that this troublemaker could possibly be the sister of such a sweet girl, but the writer explained that she was adopted. Yu sighed in relief and told her, "Good thing she isn't really your sister." From that moment on, the writer began to admire him deeply. Later, Yu was stunned when he discovered that the respected director, Sunyong, was the very same rebellious girl he had once met. They kept talking, and when he asked her again about her novels and where she published them, she avoided answering. Suddenly, Yu received a call that Director Park had been admitted to the hospital and urgently needed him. Before leaving, he handed her his business card, asking to meet again. She was overjoyed. Meanwhile, Hyan, who was staying the night with Sunyong, tried to comfort her. He gently removed the pins from her hair, but she screamed in protest. Afterward, he asked if she was upset that her wedding was ruined. He reminded her how her mother had suffered a relapse before the graduation photo, forcing her to rush away from the ceremony to search for her mother. But Sunyong calmly replied that she had always expected this would happen. At the hospital, Assistant Yu began reading the writer's novel. To his surprise, the main character's name was also Yu. Director Park grew furious, declaring that this writer must be silenced. Her vulgar words were unacceptable for his mother or the public to read. He even took it personally, so much so that he considered creating a fake account just to attack her with hateful comments. Back with Sunyong and Hyan, they sat counting their savings. When Hyan offered to keep the money safe, Sunyong refused, saying she didn't know him well enough to trust him. So Hyan opened up about his past. The woman from Canada he often spoke to was actually his grandmother's daughter, who had married a Canadian man years ago. When Sunyong asked if that made her his aunt, Hyan denied it. Slowly, she realized the truth. His own mother had abandoned him, married abroad, and left him behind. His grandmother placed him in an orphanage, telling him his parents were dead. Worse still, his mother had been married before, with another child. Sunyong understood then how Hyan had lived his whole life deprived of love and family, and her trust in him grew. Meanwhile, the writer continued working on her story until she received a message from Director Park's secretary. A mysterious new account had appeared, filled with insults and one-star reviews of her novel. The secretary told her not to be discouraged, reminding her that she had countless fans who adored her work. But the writer was stubborn, determined not to care. Yet when she read the comments, she was crushed. The words were so cruel she shut her laptop, but couldn't resist opening it again to keep reading. The next day, Sunyong was at the airport, loading her money onto a travel card while chatting with her friend Hui, telling her she was finally boarding the plane. When she returned, she found Hyan watching a happy family, parents and children laughing together before their flight. His eyes were filled with quiet sorrow. Sunyong sat beside him, speaking of her mother, how kind she had been to everyone, except her. She wasn't surprised her mother didn't even remember her. Hyan was moved by her pain. Then Sunyong handed him an envelope of money, saying it was his share. Hyan refused, but she insisted, calling him my husband. She wished him happiness, urging him to let go of his past and free his mother, grandmother, and everyone who had hurt him. When he asked why she called him her husband, she reminded him they still wore their rings, still bound as a family. For the first time, Hyan smiled, said goodbye, and walked away. On the plane, Sunyong opened her bag to find the money she had given him, returned along with a note. In it, Hyan wished her happiness and hoped that next time she would marry someone who truly deserved her. She was overjoyed, not knowing that Hyan had stayed awake by her side all night, watching her with love. 3 months later, the company was preparing the celebration hall. Jay stood among his colleagues when suddenly Sunyong appeared. The ceremony was actually in her honor. Her project had won first place, earning her a major promotion. Everyone cheered, while Jay looked at her with deep regret, knowing he had let her slip away. At that time, Sunyong's sister was sitting with a director and a young voice actress, because they were turning the writer's novel into an audio drama. They signed the contract together. But wait, focus with me here. Did you notice the voice actress? Do you know who she is? Yes, she's the same girl with the big earrings, the one who was rumored to be dating the young man who owned the recording studio, Hui's fiancé. Of course, the writer didn't know this. After the contract was done, the voice actress left, while the writer stayed with the director. The director told her that the lawyer had reached out, offering to settle the issue peacefully. But the writer was firm. She said she would never give up her right against the one who spread those vile comments about her. Meanwhile, Assistant Yu was in the office when Director Park's furious father stormed in. Park's mother told Yu to cancel all his appointments, while his father lashed out at him, because Park was the very person behind the abusive comments on the writer's novel. He was the one being sued. His father warned him that unless he went to apologize to her formally, he'd be fired before the press found out and disgraced them all. Park had no other choice. At that moment, the writer was leaving the company when she saw the voice actress getting into a car, with none other than Hui's fiancé, who had been waiting for her. That's when the writer realized the truth. She was his lover. Back at the company, an announcement came that Sunyong's celebratory party would be canceled, since Director Park couldn't attend. And of course, Jae didn't miss the chance. He kept mocking and bullying Sunyong. Later, they all went to a restaurant for dinner. Natasha teased Sunyong, saying she should bring her husband next time, pointing at Jae and his wife, who were excessively romantic together. Sunyong, however, said her husband had traveled to Canada to visit his family, and they'd meet him when he returned. We then learned the truth. Ever since Sunyong came back from her trip, 3 months had passed with no word from Hyan. He never returned. Instead, another young man took his place at the supermarket. He looked so much like Hyan that every time she saw him, she was reminded of him. One day, he delivered a package to her. It was Hyan's cat. Meanwhile, Hyan himself was sitting in a hospital beside Sunyong's mother. It was clear he was hiding a huge secret, but we didn't yet know what it was. Every morning when Sunyong woke up, she'd find the cat had wreaked havoc again, knocking things over, covering all her clothes in white fur. She endured it only because it was Hyan's. Her friend Hui kept teasing her, asking if she liked Hyan, since she never stopped thinking and asking about him since his disappearance. Sunyong denied it, telling Hui to just focus on her own fiancé before she woke up one day and found him married. Just then, Sunyong's younger sister came downstairs wearing strange clothes, asking if she looked important. They laughed and told her she looked more like a fool. When they asked where she was going, she refused to tell them and walked out. Meanwhile, Assistant Yu pulled up to the police station with Director Park. Park was dressed like a beggar, trying to disguise his identity so no one would know he was from their company. Yu tried to coach him on how to apologize, then left him there. Inside, the officers made Park read his own abusive comments aloud. The writer overheard him from outside. She hated listening and refused to enter the station. When Park finally came out, he called Yu. Just then, the writer's assistant filmed him and threatened to expose him. Furious and hurt, she rushed at him and shoved him, but she was the one who fell. He panicked, picked up her phone, and tried to help her up. At that exact moment, she got a message. Confirmation that the man apologizing inside was indeed the one she had sued. That's when she realized he was the writer herself. She immediately pulled away and ran off. Later, Sunyong received a call, picked up her phone, and spotted Director Park. She called out to him, but he tried to walk away. Then Yu called out his name, blowing his cover. Park had no choice but to admit who he was. He congratulated her on winning the award, thanking her, and spoke passionate, emotional words that didn't match the time, place, or his appearance. But still, she felt happy. She went home to her sister, who was trembling with fear, and reassured her. A few days later, they were preparing the office for Sunyong's new team. Sunyong said she'd go buy drinks for everyone while they waited. The new employees arrived, ready for their interviews. At that moment, Assistant Yu told Park that he was going to meet his girlfriend. He got out of the car, followed by Park, who was shocked to discover that his girlfriend was actually the writer. Quickly, he turned his back before she could see him. Meanwhile, Sunyong was returning to the company and noticed a large crowd gathered inside. But her attention was immediately drawn to a striking figure, Hyan. He looked different than usual, absolutely radiant as always. He approached her and said he had come to join the company just to be near her because he missed her terribly. We then learned that after leaving Sunyong at the hotel, Hyan had been approached by someone in a luxurious car who asked if he was Mr. John Kim, his real name. Hyan denied it. This man showed him a photo of Hyun's mother, asked if he was her son, and threatened him. If the wealthy family ever found out he had a child before marriage, his life would be ruined. But it turned out this man worked for his mother, arranging for him to be hired at Cool B Company. After some time, Hyan returned and applied as an intern. Back to Sunyong. She was shocked to see him, but Jae's wife appeared and called out to her, joking that she had thought the intern was her husband because he looked so much like him. Sunyong laughed and played along, but the wife asked her to help, since she was responsible for introducing the new interns to the company. Sunyong agreed. Everyone gathered in the meeting room, and by coincidence, Hyun ran into the kind young man he had met earlier at another company. They had interviewed together. The young man greeted Hyun warmly. Sunyong welcomed them, then warned everyone that anyone thinking of making a mistake with the interns wouldn't just be fired. They'd all get teased mercilessly. The interns were genuinely intimidated by her. After the meeting, Sunyong ran after Hyun, who led her to the stairs to avoid being seen. He explained that he had been away traveling, and regarding his work and new identity, he couldn't tell her much. What mattered to Sunyong was that he had suddenly disappeared, and she had tried to contact him many times without success. Hyun reassured her that he hadn't wanted to lie, yet couldn't reveal his whereabouts. Sunyong forgave him. Before leaving, she tidied his hair, joking that now it looked untidy. Meanwhile, Assistant Yu was at the cafe with the writer, reminiscing about old times. The writer kept coming up with new ideas for her novel, but refused to show Yu. Then, Park called. He had been watching them from outside the cafe and was shocked to see it was the same writer. He quickly left before being discovered, worried she might realize Yu was his assistant and be trying to gather information about them. Back to Sunyong. She and her team were preparing the meeting space for the children's families. Hyun helped, naturally charming everyone. The other girls were impressed by his looks and kindness, which made Sunyong jealous. So she limited his interactions with clients, making him wear a bee costume, covering his face, and entertaining the kids instead. She made him drink water when he got tired and helped him remove the bee head. All the mothers came to Hyun for explanations about the programs, but Sunyong couldn't stop them. She noticed a child playing alone, repeatedly hurting his arm but not crying. He reminded her of herself, so she went over to talk to him. He was scared and reluctant to participate in anything, but Sunyong reassured him and joked with him. He trusted her and showed her all the bruises and marks on his body. She began photographing them. Suddenly, a man appeared on the balcony, watching Sunyong interact with the child. It turned out he was the child's father. He came down and Sunyong noticed clear signs of abuse. She continued photographing them. The father tried to grab her phone, claiming the child had hurt himself on the table, but Sunyong didn't believe him. When she refused, he hit her, but Hyun intervened, striking the man. The child, terrified, started crying for his father. Meanwhile, Hui was with her fiancé, preparing papers for her acting audition. She had failed multiple times before, but her fiancé encouraged her, saying she had to succeed this time because he would marry her afterward. She could hardly believe him, knowing he had been unfaithful. Back with Sunyong and Hyun, despite the father's aggression, the man continued to overstep boundaries. Hyun continued lying, but then the company lawyer arrived and defended both him and Sunyong. She managed to get them out of trouble, but asked Sunyong to take action and try to save the child because his father was abusive. Moreover, the company wasn't just about educating children. It was also about protecting them. The lawyer instructed Sunyong to send her the photos and reassured Mr. Park that everything was under control, and no one would implicate the company. Sunyong sat with Hyun, tending to his wounds, thanking him for saving her. She was annoyed, though, because she'd have to see him the next day at work and pretend they didn't know each other. Later, Hyun took the same mysterious man to a luxurious house and was told that if he followed the instructions, the house would belong to him. He was also given a car key and unlimited visa privileges, all as long as he obeyed the orders. Hyun, puzzled, asked if the man was his father, thinking these demands seemed too personal. The man, named Mr. Ban, explained that he couldn't be his father since he was only 13 when Hyun was born. Meanwhile, Sunyong confided everything to her sister's sister, and her colleague Hui arrived with a wedding photo of Sunyong and Hyun. Hui commented that her fiancé wanted to get married, but she didn't care for weddings and wanted to remain engaged. Sunyong joked that either he should marry the man he liked or leave him to marry and have children. She then threw the photo into a storage room in her mother's house, only to discover many photos of her mother with Hyun, but Sunyong couldn't see them clearly. Later, Director Park returned home and found his father, mother, and the lawyer together. His father asked him to sign papers relinquishing his position, inheritance, and everything because he hadn't been managing the company properly. His mother intervened, requesting the lawyer draft a new contract in which Mr. Park, the CEO and Sunyong's husband, would transfer all his possessions to his wife. His father respected her wishes and remained silent. The next day at work, Sunyong was full of energy, assuming Hyun wouldn't come to the company. She was surprised when she saw that among the 20 new interns, Hyun and the kind young man from before were assigned to stay at that branch. Everyone invited them to dinner to celebrate the new team. Meanwhile, Director Park struggled at the gym, unable even to lift weights. His trainer told him he needed a goal to push himself, like the woman whose husband had a wedding and a pregnant daughter, so he had to be ready to carry her when she gave birth. Park understood he needed a goal like that to keep him motivated. At the same time, the writer was at the police station, prepared to withdraw her complaint against Mr. Park. However, when she handed the officer a written apology from Park, the officer commented that it must have been drafted by his lawyer, which made her furious. Upon leaving, she confronted Park, threw the papers in his face, and vowed she would never forgive him, nor drop the case. She said she wouldn't rest until he suffered as he had wished for her in his malicious comments. The writer stormed off, enraged, while Park calmly collected the papers. Sunyong almost ran into Park and the writer's car, fainting at the sight. But Hyun was alert and managed to lift the writer safely. Now he had a goal: to rush her to the hospital. Meanwhile, Sunyong and her team stayed up late working. At the end of the day, Sunyong sat outside the restaurant with Hyan, saying she hadn't expected him to be hired at the company at all, and that he was a ticking time bomb for her. If anyone discovered their connection, it would be disastrous. The rest of the team left. Hyun arrived, accompanied Sunyong, and they were surprised to see Director Jae, who had been sleeping outside Sunyong's house drunk. Hyun had been speaking with his wife, but Sunyong refused, insisting that he had been tired and probably not in his right mind. She didn't want to ruin his life. Hyun got angry and asked if she still had feelings for Director Jae. She said no, so he left. Sunyong tried to resist Jae, but Hyun returned, removed him, and placed him in a taxi along with his belongings. Sunyong felt happy that Hyun continued to protect her. The next day at work, everyone arrived except Sunyong, who was very late, causing everyone to wonder where she was. The kind young man spoke to Hyun, asking if he knew why Sunyong hadn't come. It turned out he had overheard her speaking with Hyun, saying that he was a ticking time bomb, and Sunyong also refused to let him explain to the clients, so she made him wear the bee costume. She thought she was punishing him, so she reported him. At that moment, a committee was investigating her, but Hyun ran quickly to the room where the committee was. Meanwhile, Sunyong was thinking about how Hyun had been able to report her, and she suspected that he might have married her to get revenge for the broken glass incident. Hyun grabbed Sunyong's hand and introduced her as his wife. The committee was about to reprimand her because she kept her husband busy at the company and with her team, but Myra Jae explained that Sunyong had nothing to do with work decisions. They made all the choices. She even showed them Sunyong's evaluation of Hyun, which was terrible, so the committee left them alone. Meanwhile, the writer had just woken up in the hospital and found Park sleeping on the floor. When he woke, he explained he had brought her to the hospital after she fainted. She thanked him and insisted she would pay the hospital bill and would not let it influence her case. However, when Park revealed he had already covered the expenses, she was genuinely shocked. She had wanted her phone, but it had broken, so Park held her hand to prevent her from hurting herself and explained he had brought a new phone for her. When she saw it was the latest model, she accepted it and promised to pay him back. They left the hospital, and the writer recalled the nurse telling her that Park had carried her in, which explained his shoulder and back injuries. Before she got in a taxi, Park gave her some money since she had none. She promised to return it. Back with Hyun and Sunyong, their phones were flooded with messages from colleagues about the wedding news. What mattered most to Hyun was that Sunyong trusted him. No matter how much she tried to assure him that everything had happened against her will and that she would trust him later, he was skeptical. She even suggested playing a trust game, but Hyun didn't hear her. When Sunyong almost fell, Hyun immediately ran and caught her. They decided to continue the writer's project together. Whenever anyone approached, they could act naturally and continue the role until director Natasha informed Sunyong that the kind young man who had reported her had resigned. Sunyong didn't care, but Natasha mentioned that, judging by his name, he came from a wealthy family and was related to Director Park. Sunyong was shocked. After the writer returned home, she sent Park some money. Meanwhile, his mother said she would intervene and stop the writer's series because the writer refused to reconcile with Park. The mother's priority was her son's interest. At that moment, Park received a message from the writer saying she had decided to reconcile, so he hurried to stop his mother. Meanwhile, Sunyong and Hyun visited their kind colleague at his house. It turned out he and Hyun were friends, and they managed to convince him to return to work. Sunyong realized Hyun had done all this because he assumed the kind colleague was from Mr. Park's family, based on company information that one of the new interns was the illegitimate son of Mr. Bok. This news caught Hyun's attention. Sunyong went to buy the ring she had rented for Hyun, only to find he had already purchased it. The next day, Hyun got dressed, put put on the ring he had kept, and visited Mr. Ban at his home. He asked when Hyan had married and why he hadn't lived there. But Hyan silenced him and asked one question: if he was sent by Mr. Bok, meaning, if Mr. Bok was his real father. Mr. Ban could not answer. Hyan left, but left his watch at the door before going out. Mr. Ban called Mr. Bok, telling him that Hyan had begun to suspect them. Hyan went to work, as did Sunyong. Her colleagues asked why she hadn't come with her husband, so she explained she wanted to coordinate with Hyan so they could arrive together. Seeing the ring on his hand confirmed that he had rented it, but he lied to her about it. They rode the elevator with Director Jae and his wife, who mocked Sunyong, saying she had become famous on social media after they had rescued the child from his abusive father. A press conference was arranged, and they were set to meet Bok himself. The next day, Mr. Park decided to face the punishment requested by the writer. He went to volunteer at an orphanage, and by coincidence, it was the same orphanage where Yoon had grown up. Not only that, he kept returning periodically to teach the children. Hyun and Park met there, but it was clear neither could stand the other. They didn't know they were siblings. Park's task was to do the laundry, but he had no experience at all. Hyun went to help him, yet the tension between them remained. Park asked Hyun why he was there and what wrong he had done. Hyun replied that the wrong he had done was still alive today, then left. Later, Hyun sent a message to the writer to let her know he was volunteering as she had requested, but the photo disappeared before she could show it to her sister. That night, Park left the orphanage and ran into a woman. He tried to hide, but she was a prominent journalist. She told him she was also there as a form of punishment for her past actions. The next day, Hyun went to pick up Sunyong from her house. She was surprised to see he had a car, so she asked if he had a girlfriend. He said no, but he did have a special person in his life. He meant her. He drove her to the company. Meanwhile, Park arrived at the company and learned of a major press conference. Curious, he went to see what was happening and was surprised to find that Sunyong and Hyun would appear at the conference as a reward for what they had done with the little boy. Hyun refused to mention meeting Park at the orphanage and treated him as a regular director. Before entering the conference hall, Hyun recalled something important. He had left his watch recording everything, including a conversation between Mr. Ban and Mr. Bok. He wanted to tell Sunyong the full truth, but when he saw her smiling, saying it was the happiest day of her life and that she was invited to lunch with the CEO and his family, he didn't want to ruin it and let her enjoy herself. That same evening, Director Jae and his wife attended a family dinner with Mr. Bok to get closer to him. Everyone gathered, and Park sat next to Hyun, asking if he could drink. Hyun said he didn't, and Park explained he had inherited the situation from his father, Mr. Bok. At that moment, Hyun realized that Mr. Bok was indeed his real father. Mr. Bok arrived, and they all sat together. He asked Hyun many personal questions: how old she was, who her parents were, how her father died, if her mother had illnesses, and how she ended up with Hyun. Hyun revealed the truth. His father had run away, leaving him behind. He knew nothing about him except that he was a despicable, cowardly man, and his mother had also remarried, leaving him to grow up in a tragic life. They all drank together. The next day, Sunyong woke up surprised to find herself sleeping next to Hyun in the hotel. It turned out that she, Hyun, and Director Jae had all drunk excessively the previous night, to the point that Park, Assistant Yu, and Director Jae's wife had to carry them and reserve 2 hotel rooms. They placed them in the rooms without noticing that the door to Sunyong and Hyun's room wasn't locked properly. Director Jae's wife took advantage of the situation, asking to speak with Park before he left. The next morning, Hyun and Sunyong woke up, shocked to find themselves sleeping together, and Jae was next to them. There was a knock at the door. It was Director Jae's wife, reminding them of what had happened the night before. Jae had gotten up in the middle of the night, wandered the streets, and upon finding Sunyong and Hyun's room open, he entered drunk and slept beside them. His wife informed them that she had convinced Director Park that the 3 should work together on a project. Sunyong as the first director, Jae as the second director, and Hyun as Sunyong's assistant. All 3 were shocked, but no one could object. When Jae went to gather his things to leave with his wife, Sunyong told him where he had left his watch and the phone he always threw under the bed. Jae's wife noticed that Sunyong knew her husband well, but everyone tried to ignore it. After leaving, Jae argued with his wife because he hadn't wanted to work with Sunyong, who kept making decisions without consulting him. He left. Meanwhile, Sunyong and Hyun went to a cafe to grab a drink and discuss the possibility of divorce. Hyun told her that whenever she wanted to get a divorce, she told him to tell her immediately, and they got up and walked away. But Jae was sitting at the table next to them, overhearing their conversation. Meanwhile, Sunyong, on her way, passed by her friend Hoi's boyfriend's studio. She caught him with the girl he was cheating with while Hoy had been talking to him. Sunyong confronted the girl, pulling her by the hair and even taking off her shoes. She was about to hit them, but at the last moment, Hoy arrived and saved the situation, thankfully. At the same time, Sunyong's sister was trying to find an ending for her own drama series. The director of the orphanage called, saying Park had brought new washing machines to help them. The writer said she would accept them since it would be helpful, then hung up. She overheard her sister and Hoy arguing and was shocked. Turns out she already knew about their relationship. It also became clear that each of them was involved with someone else, which Hoy justified by saying that she had never had a nanny before and they only live once. If she and her fiancé were okay with it, then it was fine. Sunyong was about to continue punishing them with her shoe, but her sister encouraged them to play and lighten the mood. They reconciled, despite Hoy's past misdeeds. Meanwhile, the CEO continued scolding his son Park as usual, but this time because a problem had arisen in the company, and news about it had been published without their knowledge. The next day, Sunyong and Hyan went to work together. Sunyong kept reminding Hyan to act nicely and politely toward her, so no one would suspect them. She even prompted him to tell her she was beautiful to get him used to speaking kindly, but Hyan took advantage of every opportunity to get close to her, making small romantic gestures so no one would suspect anything. Upon entering the office, Sunyong grabbed Hyan's arm and Jae noticed them with a sharp glance, aware of everything. Jae entered to meet their team and kept hinting to Sunyong about the divorce, even attempting to place his desk directly in front of hers. Hyan blocked him, and Sunyong ignored him, telling him to go have lunch with them. She had prepared a lot of food but told them Hyan had made it, even though the taste was awful. She had accidentally put sugar instead of salt. She insisted it didn't matter, emphasizing that her beloved had made it. Meanwhile, Jae continued to drop hints about the divorce, especially when they heard a colleague arguing loudly on the phone. Their teammate explained it was the HR manager, who would soon be rejected because two co-workers had pretended to be married to receive spousal benefits, though they weren't actually married. Sunyong started feeling flustered, but Jae asked why she was scared, suggesting that her marriage wasn't real. Sunyong tried to act casual. After work, she rode with Hyan and asked him to move in with her. The only solution. He agreed and settled in the upper floor of her house. Sunyong asked him to clean the floor so he could stay there. Hyan compared the room with the big house he lived in, noting how messy it was. He saw wedding photos of him and Sunyong and pictures of Sunyong's mother with him in high school, recalling how his grandmother had sent him to live with her. She had been very kind, and he had stayed in that room for over 2 years. When Sunyong arrived, he hid the photos so she wouldn't see them. Later, we see Director Park bringing the washing machines. Assistant Yu handled the laundry, but as usual, he was annoyed with both Park and himself, as Park had taken him on his day off to work at the orphanage. Meanwhile, the writer was on her way to the orphanage, reflecting on her memories and how she had been a target of bullying. She arrived at the orphanage and Park was shocked, especially since Assistant Yu was with her. He took the writer and ran, and she, excited by the romantic chase, ran seriously, even overtaking him. When they stopped, she asked why they had been running. Park looked at her as if seeing her for the first time, how beautiful and kind she was, and felt his emotions stirring. When she asked again why they were running, he said it was because of Assistant Yu, leaving the writer stunned. Park quickly recovered and asked why she had named the hero in her novel Yu. She explained that it was the name of someone she loved, a secret no one knew. Park became annoyed and changed the subject. The writer noticed Hyun's hands were chapped from all the washing and felt sorry for him. She went to get him some moisturizing cream, but when she returned, she saw Park talking with Assistant Yu and realized that Park was the strict, annoying manager. When Park saw her, he panicked and didn't want Yu to notice, so they got into the car, with Park driving. The writer hid, and Park caught her fearful, shy eyes, an image that stayed in his mind. The next day at the office, Sunyong came to invite Assistant Yu to a party celebrating her and her husband's housewarming. Director Park asked Yu if he could join, but he declined. Park then approached Hyun, trying to be friendly, mentioning that they had hung the laundry together, yet Hyun had never invited him to the party. Hyun avoided him and walked away quickly. Meanwhile, the writer and Hoy were cleaning the house, placing photos of Hyun and Sunyong everywhere, their marital home. The writer was annoyed and asked if it was because of Assistant Yu that Sunyong wasn't inviting her, but she refused, insisting that everyone in the company had to be present for the plan to succeed. At the end of the day, Sunyong and Hyun returned home, nearly half the company joining them for a meal. Jae, as usual, made sarcastic remarks, noticing that nothing in the furniture had changed. His wife questioned him again, as always, and they brushed the topic off, spending a pleasant day together. By the end of the day, everyone left except Sunyong and Hyan, and he helped her clean the house. Sunyong apologized to him, saying that he should have fallen in love with a girl a year ago, but her marriage had stopped him. She encouraged him to meet other girls and live his life. Although it was obvious she was jealous, she tried not to show it. When Hyun approached to take the keys, he told her that his work was his top priority and left for the second floor. Meanwhile, the writer went with assistant Yu to their school gate, reminiscing about happy memories. Yu, however, didn't like school at all and asked why she had suddenly disappeared for a while. This prompted the writer to recall her painful memories. She had suffered abuse from her father to the point that even after Sunyong's family took her in, she continued to see him. Her father once opened the closet she was hiding in and beat her, but Sunyong's mother calmed her, promising to move her to a distant orphanage. That was why she had stayed away from school, though she didn't tell Yu this. Later, Sunyong went to Hyun and suddenly approached him, hugging him. Hyun couldn't pull away and almost confessed his feelings, but she was only doing it for her sister. From outside, Jae saw them, standing at the door. Sunyong saw him and moved closer to him, which annoyed Hyun. He thought she was beginning to fall for him. He approached her and warned her not to get close again, especially since she had no feelings, then left her and went into his room. Meanwhile, Jae's wife arrived home thinking about what her husband was doing, especially since he had asked the driver to drop him off at a supermarket in Sunyong's neighborhood, clearly knowing the area well. He refused to return with his wife, claiming he wanted a walk, adding to the situations that had built between him and Sunyong. She began to realize it, but refused to show anything to her husband. Hyun and Sunyong couldn't sleep, each thinking about the other's actions. The next morning, when Hyun woke up wanting to use the bathroom, he was too shy to knock, but the writer caught him and insisted he eat breakfast with them. He quickly went to the bathroom before being exposed and then joined them for breakfast. The tension and challenge in the glances between him and Sunyong were obvious, enough for Hoy and the writer to notice they were at odds. The writer recounted the previous day's events to Hoy, and they teased them. Meanwhile, Park went to speak with assistant Yu, asking about what happened at Sunyong and Hyun's housewarming. He tried to ask about the writer, but Yu wasn't interested and clearly treated the writer like an old friend. Park was very annoyed because she called him, even though he had sent her messages that she hadn't replied to. She called him and even asked to meet him. Park went immediately to see her, but became upset when he found that she had come to end their relationship. She also told him that she had withdrawn the complaint and didn't want him to go to the orphanage anymore, or interfere in any matters between her and assistant Yu. Park tried to reassure her that Yu wouldn't be involved in anything and that she didn't need to worry. He wanted to stay by her side. Suddenly, the writer saw someone coming out of the police station, her abusive father. She broke down, grabbed Park's hand, and begged him to run with her. He quickly took off, sensing her fear and tension, holding her hand tightly. She felt safe with him. Meanwhile, Sunyong went to Hyun's room to continue their argument but didn't find him. Instead, she found him asleep on the floor. She felt uneasy because the room was completely empty. Hyun, at that time, went to Sunyong's mother in the hospital and stayed with her. When she mentioned her daughter's name, Sunyong, Hyun became extremely happy and wanted to video call so Sunyong could see her mother. But he refrained because he didn't want Sunyong to find out anything yet. The writer sat in a narrow street, scared and disoriented. Director Park stayed close to her. When he noticed her fear, he gave her his jacket and stayed beside her, singing a song to make her feel safe. The writer was overjoyed, feeling happy and secure with him. Thinking back on everything that had happened, she began to feel admiration and love for Park. At the end of the day, she thanked him for everything, but this would be their last meeting. Both of them had tears in their eyes, but neither could admit their true feelings. The next day, Hyun noticed that Sunyong was completely ignoring him and doing all the housework by herself, needing no man's help, which increased his respect for her. Meanwhile, Mr. Bond talked with Director Park about the latest developments with Hyun. Park felt guilty toward his son, Na Hyun, but couldn't admit it because of his wife. Mr. Bond scolded him, saying that if he cared for his children as much as he cared for his crops, they would have been fine long ago. Outside, Park ran into Mrs. Director Bok, who hinted that she knew everything, that Hyun was her husband's son from his first love. The next day, Sunyong rode with Hyun, still upset with him, and told him she had a meeting to present a new idea, but didn't know how to do it. Hyun didn't know how to help her, but he reminded her about the orphanage where he grew up, which sparked an idea for her. During the meeting, Sunyong began presenting her idea. Director Park, however, was completely focused on the writer and all the moments they had shared together. He became upset that he wouldn't see her again and loudly said that he didn't like the idea. but he meant he didn't like that he wouldn't see her. Sunyong interrupted and said she would implement the idea at the orphanage. Park liked it and asked her to take the elevator with him to explain it further. He liked it so much that he asked her not to tell anyone, especially her husband or the writer. Meanwhile, in the office, Hyan consulted a colleague about how to reconcile with Sunyong. His colleague advised him to promise her he wouldn't do it again, meaning he wouldn't come near her anymore. When they rode together in the car, Hyan had written Sunyong an apology message, promising he wouldn't come near her again. She got angry, tore the paper, and took Sunyong with her. They went to a home goods store because she wanted to buy a bedroom set and wardrobe for Hyan. While trying beds, Hyan confessed that he liked her. She blushed and didn't know how to respond. When Hyan left, Sunyong asked him to wait. She admitted that she also liked him but asked him to wait until she was settled in her work so she could be fully available for him. Hyan promised to wait for her forever if she wanted. The next day, Director Jae prepared himself, spraying an overwhelming amount of perfume. His wife asked if he was going out with Director Sunyong, and he confirmed that they were working together. She asked if he was upset about working with Sunyong. She could have moved it freely, but Jae argued with her, insisting that she place it where she wanted. His wife's suspicions were confirmed at that moment. Meanwhile, Jae went to meet Sunyong at the orphanage. They presented their project to the orphanage director, explaining that they would teach the children for free and use it as promotion. The director loved the idea and asked if Hyan would be working with them. They said yes. There was also a female teacher at the orphanage who was very fond of Hyan. The director mentioned this in front of Jae. He tried to tell her that Hyan was married to Sunyong, but Sunyong stopped him, and he realized that their marriage was indeed fake. After leaving, Jae kept asking her if she had married Hyan just to annoy him. He apologized repeatedly and told her he still loved her. Sunyong became very upset, grabbed a large stick from her car and ran after him, intending to hit him. Meanwhile, the writer was reading comments online and saw Director Park reading her novel and leaving positive, encouraging comments. She was overjoyed and called Assistant Yu, unsure why she was so excited. He was busy but eventually admitted that he was going with his director to help at the orphanage. When she asked why, she was shocked to learn that Assistant Yu had actually written the negative comments, especially the one on page 51 that caused the complaint. It turned out Park had been falsely accused, and Assistant Yu was the real culprit, deserving punishment. The next day, Mr. Moon approached Hyan and told him to quit his job because Mrs. Bach had found out everything and would soon expose him. Meanwhile, at the orphanage, Park and Assistant Yu divided the children into teams to play soccer. Park told them the goal was to get June into Yu's net and enjoy the game, while Yu said winning didn't matter. The real victory was hitting Park because he was there to be punished for being a bad person. The game began, and Yu didn't care if his team won, but more than one child managed to get past him, while Park was physically struggling on the field. After the game, the writer came to check on Park and was surprised when the children told her he was guilty and there to be punished. But Park told them he was happy to be with them and that they were the best thing in his life. The writer was pleased to see him happy. He noticed her, and she told him she had come to ask him something, all the questions swirling in her mind, the lies he had told her, taking the punishment alone while Yu had written the comments. Why Yu did it and why she hadn't known were condensed into one. "Do you like me?" Park answered yes. Although the writer was overjoyed, she told him their story ended there because it had no proper ending. She walked away, but Park followed, saying they could create a good, happy ending for her story. He called her by her pen name. Yu overheard this and was shocked. Before he could process what happened, Park took the writer and they walked away. She was very upset that Yu had discovered her secret, and even more upset that Park was the one taking her home. Meanwhile, Sunyong and Hyan were assembling the furniture they had bought, sharing a romantic moment after confessing their feelings to each other. At the same time, Park arrived with the writer, who asked him not to meet her again. Then Park received a call from his mother, revealing that Hyan was actually his illegitimate brother. Enraged, Park stormed to Hyan's house and demanded to know if Hyan's real name was Hyun Bak, not Hyun Kim. Everyone was shocked. But Hyan said he was born without a father and didn't know what Park was talking about. Park argued with him, threatening that if he saw him at the company again, he would kill him, swearing at him in front of his mother. As he left, the writer stood at the door and heard everything. Park told her he had thought she had finally started seeing his good side, but unfortunately, he had to leave at his worst. He walked away, saddened, and she was upset too. Hyun told Sunyong he would talk to Mr. Bak and get her job back, but Sunyong said that to return to work, he would have to take the company from Park. Hyun refused, as he had only just learned a few days ago that he had a brother. Meanwhile, Park returned home to find his mother had destroyed all his father's crops, knowing how much he loved them, despite his pleading for her not to cut the trees. She liked the idea easily. Honestly, while Sunyong kept thinking about Hyan and the suffering he had endured and was still enduring, she went to talk to him and he told her that he had spoken to his mother. Naturally, she was very worried that the news would reach her husband. She confirmed to him that Mr. Bok was indeed his father. Sunyong tried to reassure him and stayed by his side, apologizing for involving him in all of this. When she learned that he had been forcibly employed at the company because his father threatened to expose him to his wife's family, she realized that he had never agreed to work there. After a while, Sunyong went downstairs to study employment law. When Hoi arrived, she asked if she had really been fired, but Sunyong reassured her that she hadn't, explaining that Park couldn't fire her because a dismissal required a decision from Mr. Bok. Meanwhile, the writer kept thinking about Park, but Hoi arrived and interrupted her thoughts. They began talking about Sunyong and Hyan, but Hoi's bag accidentally fell, spilling a gynecologist's follow-up notebook. The writer realized Hoi was pregnant, which made her anxious and tense because she didn't know whether the child belonged to her fiancé or her other lover. Truly a last straw situation. The next day, Hyan and Sunyong went to the company and saw a good morning notice posted on the company door, rejecting Sunyong and Hyan, signed and sealed by Mr. Bok and his wife. Sunyong widened her eyes in shock. Hyun stopped Park, who had entered the company arrogantly, and told him that he and Sunyong were divorced and that there was no reason to fire her. Everything that had happened was between them and Park, and Hyun requested no disturbance be made in the office. Hyun also submitted his resignation, formally separating from Sunyong. However, Park remembered his mother, merciless after she had destroyed her husband's crops, cut his hair, and demanded her son drive Hyun out of all of Korea, not just the company, just as she had done with his own mother long ago. Although Park initially refused, because Hyun had no one but his wife, Sunyong, he had to follow his mother's orders. He told Hyun to leave Korea, promising to personally transfer him to an overseas branch. Sunyong was asked to remove her ring to make the divorce believable. She would leave the project she had managed but remain in the company. Meanwhile, the whole company was abuzz about what had happened with director Sunyong and Hyun. Jae entered, speaking with Sunyong and trying to lighten the mood. He was glad to confirm that she and Hyun had divorced, and he swore he hadn't told anyone that their marriage had been fake. Sunyong assured him that their marriage was real, and they wouldn't actually divorce, and then sent him out of the office. Meanwhile, Hoi told her fiancé that she was pregnant, but he replied that the child wasn't his and apologized, saying he needed to consult his mother first to determine if it was indeed his. Hoi didn't understand her mother's connection to the matter. Back to Hyun and Sunyong. She went to sit with him on the rooftop, bringing some children's toys, including balloons. They played as a way to cope with the challenges and misfortunes thrown at them. After playing and bouncing around, Sunyong reassured Hyun that she would leave the company if needed, as she was an extremely capable HR manager. She wished he had known this earlier. Hyun refused to let her know that he had agreed to Park's plan to leave Korea, but Sunyong learned that Jae had discovered the truth about their fake marriage. Meanwhile, Jae was arguing with his wife on their way home from work, asking if she had been involved in rejecting Sunyong. She said no. He realized it was because Sunyong had been his former lover, whom he had known, and that he had wanted her fired. He was shocked, kept driving silently like a pencil, not opening his mouth at all. Days passed. Sunyong continued working at the branch she had been transferred to, deciding how to proceed. Each day, she brought food for the writer. One day, she said goodbye to her sister and went to work. The writer received a call from a number she recognized as belonging to the person who had just been released from prison. It had been registered to the killer, and the writer panicked, especially since she was home alone. Meanwhile, Sunyong went to the train station where Hyun was waiting. He told her he had decided to spend the day with her after work, and they talked the entire way. The writer went to meet her landlord, who had provided her with a house in a distant neighborhood. Fearful that the killer might find her, she quickly signed the papers. Then she saw Assistant Yu calling her, wanting to meet. She agreed. At the same time, she saw Park sitting sadly, looking at photos from their orphanage days, remembering Hyun. Despite their previous animosity, Park had lived his entire life without a brother. Assistant Yu entered and asked something. He asked for leave because he had an errand, and unusually, Park agreed. He went to meet the writer, trying to reassure her, and apologized for being shocked when he realized she was the same writer. He spoke about Park in front of her so she could understand how bad his condition was, which distressed her deeply. Meanwhile, Sunyong had arrived at the place they were heading to, one of the private kindergartens owned by their company. Sunyong brought a closure notice, and the manager of the place was very upset. At that moment, an elderly woman entered and asked about her grandchildren before leaving. The kindergarten manager explained to Sunyong that the woman's grandchildren had studied there before her children took them away and moved abroad. Ever since, the woman came every day to check on them and enjoy the place's atmosphere. The elderly woman made things very difficult for Sunyong, but she couldn't do anything about it. After finishing, Sunyong and Hyan spent the day together. From the beach to the amusement park, they took photos, wandered around the city, and had a truly wonderful time. Sunyong admitted to Hyan that she regretted the time she had left her mother after her father's death. She said that if she had stayed with her mother and eased her burdens, perhaps her mother wouldn't have developed Alzheimer's at her age. They returned to the city. Meanwhile, the writer was sitting alone when she suddenly heard a noise outside. She saw a stranger dressed in black circling the house and hiding. At the same time, the killer called her again. The writer was terrified, especially since she was alone. Sunyong and Hyan rushed toward the house, following the sound of her scream. They cornered the intruder, but then Park arrived. To explain why he was there, let's rewind a little. Earlier, Park had gone to Hana and, for the first time in his life, drank because he was so upset, constantly thinking about the writer. Soon after, Assistant Yu came to get him, only to be surprised that everyone was staring. Park had told those present before fainting, "Keep an eye on my assistant. He's an ideal person." They took Yu, got into a taxi, and gave him the writer's address. Park regained consciousness, got out of the taxi, and found himself in front of her house. When the writer saw him from behind, she mistook him for the killer, especially since Park was holding a phone and trying to call Assistant Yu, the same moment the real killer was calling her. Summoning her courage, she grabbed Sunyong's large stick and confronted the intruder, shouting that he was evil. But Park reminded her she was talking about him and pulled her out from behind the car, apologizing if he had scared her. The writer calmed down, happy he was there, and explained that she hadn't meant to target him and that she missed him greatly. Park couldn't hide his feelings any longer. He approached her and hugged her. The writer screamed from the shock, and Sunyong and Hyan thought he was a thief and pulled him away. Here, Park confessed everything to Sunyong. He was the one who had written the hurtful comments and had fallen in love with her. Despite all that had happened, he truly admired and loved her. Sunyong got angry upon learning that he had caused the writer's sadness and fear. She grabbed the stick and struck, but the blow hit Hyan, who had been shielding Park. The writer shocked them by admitting to Sunyong that she too admired and loved Park. They all forgot themselves, exchanging glances filled with love. But Sunyong, overcome by romance, ran after the writer, threatening to hit her. Hyan took Park aside to rest for a while they finished their argument. There was significant awkwardness between them, but Hyan allowed Park to sleep there until morning. Sunyong was frustrated with the writer for loving Park, despite everything he had done to her and her brother. The writer explained that she truly loved him, but knew they could never be together because he came from a wealthy family, and no one would accept her. Sunyong comforted her, saying that everyone wished for this, but just not with this person, and hugged her. At night, Sunyong checked on Hyan and found him sleeping on the floor, with Park on the bed. She took the blanket from Park and covered Hyan, surprised that both were sleeping in the same position. She tended to Hyan's bump and then went upstairs to check her messages. She found a police notification that the killer had been released. Sunyong was shocked, recalling the events from 10 years ago when she returned home to find the police in chaos outside her house. The ambulance had removed her father's body, and also the killer, because he was the one. Her father had been killed and imprisoned since then. Sunyong snapped out of her memories and entered the house, worried about the writer. Meanwhile, the killer was standing outside the house, watching everything. The next day, Hoi's fiancé was standing alone in a quiet place when he approached her, apologizing for what he had said last time. He proposed marriage, saying the child needed to be raised among them, but she told him it was her problem and she had to solve it herself. He insisted she take her time to think and respond because the decision was no longer hers alone. Park woke up to find himself sleeping at Hyan's house. The problem was that anyone sleeping on the upper floor had no bathroom. But Hyan called him and said he could use their bathroom so he wouldn't be inconvenienced. Afterwards, he came out and saw Sunyong treating him with respect, addressing him as director. When the writer came down, Sunyong introduced her to Park as if they didn't know each other. Park was surprised and asked Sunyong if she had forgotten what happened yesterday. She suddenly transformed into an angry peacock and told him she didn't want to remember the person who had written hurtful things about her sister, caused trouble for her, got her brother fired, and moved her to a distant place after she had spent her whole life at that workplace. She told him it was better not to think about it. They had breakfast together politely instead of him eating alone. Park couldn't stay quiet. He asked the writer if she had found housing outside yet. Sunyong didn't know, so he pressed further. He also asked Hyan if he had finished the paperwork to travel abroad. At that moment, Sunyong realized she could no longer respect Park fully because of how he had treated her family. She asked him to speak with her alone, then took him outside and gave him money for a taxi since his phone, car, and wallet were not with him. She warned him to stay away from her sister. Hyun couldn't stop him and said that if anything happened to him, she would know how to get him. Park admitted he was genuinely afraid of her. Sunyong then went to her mother at the care home, with Hoy accompanying her. She told her mother about what happened yesterday. When she went to get water from the fridge, she noticed Hoy and immediately realized she was pregnant. She asked her, and Hoy didn't hide anything. She explained everything that had happened, including her fiancé's desire to marry her and raise the child together. They were surprised when Sunyong's mother remembered Hoy and was delighted about her pregnancy, congratulating her. For the first time, Hoy realized how happy she was about her pregnancy and started crying. Sunyong comforted her. Meanwhile, Hyun went to meet Mr. Moon, who was riding a horse and running it before letting Hyun try. Mr. Moon stayed by his side, telling him not to be afraid because he was holding the horse. This reminded Hyun of his miserable childhood, especially when he tried learning to ride a bike and kept falling and getting hurt while no one helped him, even though all the other children had their fathers teaching them. Seeing Mr. Moon, he understood the guidance and support he had lacked. Mr. Moon sat with him and explained that he had once dreamed of being a knight, but had been forced to work a regular job to fulfill his father's wishes. After his father's death, he realized it had been the biggest mistake of his life. That was why he urged Hyun to pursue what he truly wanted, not what others wanted, and live life on his own terms. Hyun understood his meaning. Meanwhile, Sunyong was at her mother's care home, telling her that it would be better for Hyun to travel abroad since she couldn't prevent it for his own good. She noticed a photo of her and Hyun's marriage on the stairs, took it, and returned home. Hyun went to get flowers for Sunyong and enlisted the writer's help to know her favorite type. At that moment, Park called the writer. She was delighted and requested to meet him, which he agreed to. A while later, Hyun came home and gave the flowers to Sunyong, telling her he was about to leave. She responded coldly, saying she knew, and he remarked that this was all she needed to say. Sunyong didn't answer, so Hyun left. She threw the flowers to the ground, crying and calling him foolish. Then Hyun returned and asked if it truly didn't matter to her whether he left. Sunyong continued to cry, saying he was leaving to fulfill his late grandmother's wishes, and because his mother had never cared for him, never seen him, and didn't even know what he looked like, she confessed her love to him, and he reciprocated. Hyun decided not to leave and to stay with her. Meanwhile, the writer went to meet Park in front of his workplace, saying she came to understand his personality better, because the protagonist of her new novel would be a company director. Despite Park, she was annoyed that the writer hadn't come to meet him for their romantic appointment. But he was happy, and showed her around the entire company. They took pictures and talked until they reached his office, where Park reenacted a scene from a story the writer had written before. The writer laughed, and both of them confessed their feelings for each other. Afterwards, they went downstairs, hand in hand, but suddenly heard a noise and hid. It turned out to be Director Jae and his wife, who were arguing about his relationship with Sunyong. He explained that his connection with her stemmed from the fact that her father had been killed while they were in college and it was difficult for him. His wife accepted this explanation and noted that the decision to dismiss Sunyong had come from Mr. Park and the CEO. They seemed to have taken their cues from her, though she didn't know why. This made the writer let go of Park's hand, and when he tried to justify his actions, she told him she never wanted to see him again. She was firm in her decision, leaving Park heartbroken because she ended their relationship so easily, without caring. The next day, Hyun and Sunyong woke up, and the writer came, visibly upset because the power had gone out last night, the fridge had turned off, and all the food had spoiled. Hyun went out to get groceries, but Sunyong noticed his school books, including a photo of him from high school with his mother. She was shocked. When Hyun returned, Sunyong confronted him about what she had discovered. Hyun remembered when he had first visited Sunyong's mother, thinking he was going to an orphanage. She had been very kind to him, hugging him and giving him the maternal care he had never experienced. She told him he could live with her, but only if the fact that she had adopted him remained a secret from her daughter, Sunyong. Hyun agreed but couldn't reveal anything to Sunyong. When Sunyong learned that Hyun had been adopted, she was deeply upset, especially because it had happened after her father's death, a tragedy indirectly caused by their adoption of the writer. She demanded that Hyun leave, but when he refused and tried to explain, she didn't listen and left the house. The writer had overheard everything. Meanwhile, Assistant Yu went out with some old friends from high school to learn more about the writer. particularly why she had left school despite her love for it. One of her old classmates explained that her father had killed someone, and she was the only witness, so she had fled to escape him. He continued searching for her but was eventually imprisoned, which led to her relocation. The writer's memories of these events came flooding back. We also learned that Sunyong's mother had previously called the writer, scolding her over her husband's death, which had led the writer to leave their home. Later, Sunyong's mother met the writer, apologized, and allowed her to live with them again to honor her late husband's last wish. Years later, when Sunyong returned to her family home, the writer was waiting for her, having vowed to protect her without revealing that the killer of her father was actually the writer's father, who had intended to kill her. The writer was lost in her thoughts when she heard the door and realized Sunyong had returned. She tried to explain everything, but Sunyong wouldn't give her a chance and went straight to her room. The next day, Hyan was at the company, waiting to see Sunyong, only to find out she hadn't come because she had taken a day off. Meanwhile, Park was upset and furious. When Assistant Yu asked him why, Park said the writer wasn't responding to him at all, and he didn't know what to do. Hyan overheard and said Sunyong wasn't responding to him either, so they all shared their frustrations. Assistant Yu then shared what he had learned about Sunyong's father's death, though none of them knew that the writer's father was the killer. Hyun came up with an idea. Park would contact Sunyong, while Hyun would contact the writer. Park called Sunyong and asked where she was. She had taken a day off to spend it at her family's country house. Hyun learned this and ran to meet her. Meanwhile, Hoi went to stay with the writer, deciding to keep the child and register it under her fiancé's name. The writer supported her decision. At that moment, the writer's father was still standing outside the house, observing everything. Hifa was reminding her fiancé of a doctor's appointment, when the girl he had been involved with entered and struck her with a pen, saying he had left her because the child wasn't his. She said things to upset Hoi further. Then we see Hyun arriving at the country house and finding Sunyong stepping out of. The room was filled with smoke and she started hitting him. They both fell, but Hyun got up and set a fire for her just the way she wanted, though he refused to tell her he had arrived. She told him she wanted to be alone, still unable to believe that her mother had adopted another child after her father's death and hadn't cared about her late husband. Hyun handed her a video that had been recorded of her mother when she regained her memory. She kept asking about Sunyong and held the teddy bear as if it were her daughter. Meanwhile, Hoi and her fiancé went to check on the child, but her fiancé kept thinking about what the girl had said and became very upset, realizing he was not the child's father. Hoi noticed his expression as they returned, and her fiancé tried to reassure her that everything was fine, but she asked him to stand by her side. She got out of the car and walked alone. He quickly followed her, asking what was wrong. She explained that she loved him all this time because he had been honest, and she understood him well, knowing that he couldn't accept the child. He admitted he couldn't, but with time, things would pass. She left, asking him not to follow her. Meanwhile, the writer sat alone, thinking about her new story, putting on headphones to concentrate. Back to Sunyong and Hyun, who were talking. Hyun tried to make her understand that her mother loved her very much, reminding her of the time he met her before. She remembered him and asked him to leave. At that moment, the writer's father managed to break into the house. Because she had her headphones on, she didn't hear anything. He turned off the lights, and when the writer saw him, she was shocked and fell. He shouted at her to stand out of respect for her father after all these years. She threw her phone at him and ran to her room, but he followed, screaming, cursing, and breaking the door. Sunyong felt a pang of fear, sensing something was wrong. She tried calling the writer repeatedly, but there was no answer, which worried her even more since the writer had never ignored her calls. Hyun noticed her anxiety, and she explained that the killer who had murdered her father had been released from prison, and she feared he might target the writer. He immediately called his brother Park, asking him to go to the writer's house. Meanwhile, the father had broken in and continued attacking her, demanding to know about her mother. It was revealed that her mother had cheated on him and left him, and he had treated the writer harshly to punish her for her mother's actions. Eventually, the writer found the courage to stand up to him, calling him a coward, saying she was no longer afraid. He kept hitting her until Park arrived, protecting her and pushing him away. The father had a knife and injured Park, leading to a fierce struggle. Park managed to disarm the father and continued to beat him until he lost consciousness. The writer regained herself, checked on Park, who was fine, and then the police and ambulance arrived to treat them and arrest the criminal. Finally, Sunyong and Hyun arrived. The writer cried and her sister hugged her. When the father emerged, he claimed the writer was his daughter and that he had come to see her. Sunyong, holding the bag, struck him in the face, shouting that the writer didn't need a bad, murderous father. He tried to hit her back, but it became clear that Sunyong had known everything from the start. When she first returned and saw the writer after her father's death, she understood the whole situation but noticed the writer's fear, anxiety, and lack of confidence. She knew she had to stand by her, treating her like a sister. The writer hugged her, calling her the most precious thing that had ever happened to her. Sunyong admitted that she had been afraid of losing her too. Hyan thanked Park for helping him save the writer and, for the first time, called him by his full name, Yoon Park. The police and ambulance left with the criminal and everyone returned home. Sunyong reconciled with Hyan but made him sleep on the couch. The writer checked on Park, thanking him for what he had done. He asked her to stay beside him, confessing his love, which shocked her. He still loved her despite knowing everything. They reunited. Soon after, Sunyong received a call and learned that her mother had passed away. She didn't react at first, but informed Hyan, who was also shocked. They went to retrieve her mother from the hospital and then to the funeral home. Throughout the journey, Sunyong couldn't stop crying. She met her friends Hoy and the writer, and then the people whom Sunyong's mother had adopted arrived. Sunyong realized she had been very distant from her mother and unaware of many things, such as her heavy smoking and other aspects of her life. She met them as young people whom her mother had adopted, and they spent the whole day in grief, sadness, and tears. Despite that, Sunyong felt happy that so many people had come to visit her mother. Her friends stayed with her until the very end. Afterwards, they buried her mother next to her husband. After the mourning, Hyun stayed close to Sunyong, holding her hand to let her know he was there. But the shock hit her, and she asked him to stop the ceremony they had arranged. She took her mother's ring, and although Hyun was reluctant, she left with it. She went home crying with her friends beside her, while Hyun quietly collected his things and left. Days passed, and Sunyong saw the director arriving to receive an award for his work, recognizing her contribution as she was now the head of the orphan education project she had originally conceived. Park saw her and informed her that Hyun would be leaving today, asking her to check on him, but she refused. After the ceremony, Park visited Hyun before his departure. Mr. Moon and Mr. Book were also there. For the first time, Hyun called Park "my brother," and their relationship grew very close. Hyun bid them farewell and left, while Sunyong was emotionally drained from being away from him but couldn't show it, as she wanted him to live the life he chose for himself, not the one dictated by his grandmother or mother. 6 months passed. Park had achieved the targets his father had set for him, and their company became one of the leading successful firms in children's education. He told his father he would marry the bride he wanted, and his father agreed. Meanwhile, Sunyong and assistant Yu had left their company to start a new one together. Initially, the company needed a lot of work, and they were the only employees. Unfortunately, they struggled to attract investments. The next day, Park booked a private hotel room for lunch with his father and mother. When he arrived, he found a girl waiting for him. It was a setup arranged by his parents. The girl calmly told him that she didn't actually want to marry him and was only there for her parents' sake. At the same time, the writer was with the producer, introducing her to the new voiceover artist for her series. She also told the writer she had organized a seminar and wanted her to present it. The writer saw a young man resembling Hyun with a girl and ran to see if it was him, but she missed him. He entered the elevator, and suddenly the elevator next to it opened, revealing Park with the girl. Exchanging looks between Park and the writer was filled with tension. The writer took a step to pull the girl by her hair but slipped. The young voiceover man caught her, but Park took her and drove them away, explaining everything to her. Yet, the writer remained upset that he had gone on a prearranged date. Meanwhile, Hai was in the final month of her pregnancy, heading to record her series. Coincidentally, the cinematographer was her fiancé, who still loved her and didn't want to leave her. He wore a prosthetic belly to experience the challenges of pregnancy. Hai believed him and agreed to reconcile. That night, the women celebrated Hai's 8 months of pregnancy and Sunyong's birthday. Sunyong received a call that day and went to meet the investor interested in buying her mother's countryside house. To her shock, the investor was Hyun, accompanied by a beautiful foreign girl. They seemed very close, leaving Sunyong feeling despondent. She returned home and told her sister what had happened. The writer told her she had an important lecture the next day and asked Sunyong to focus on just one person to avoid stress. The following day, Sunyong found Park in the lecture hall, encouraging her. She gained confidence and delivered an excellent lecture. Afterwards, she and Park spent the day out together. At the end of the day, Park recorded a video, took out a ring, and officially proposed. She accepted. The next day, Sunyong and assistant Yu went to Park's company, asking for his cooperation. At first, Park scolded them for leaving his company, but he later agreed, impressed by their ideas. As they left, they overheard colleagues talking about Hyun's arrival and his invitation to a wedding. Sunyong was shocked by the news. Unable to sleep, she went to the supermarket, reminiscing about memories with Hyun, crying. Hyun was there, and she congratulated him on the wedding, wishing him a happy life and let him go. But he followed her, asking why she couldn't admit she missed him. She cried, confessed her love, and he hugged her, explaining that the girl with him was his stepsister and that his mother's husband had been a good man. The wedding was for his stepsister so that all the people he loved could be present. Hyun and Sunyong returned home. The next day, she woke up to find him gone and panicked, but he had gone to get her food. She cried, confessing she was afraid he would leave her, but he, now wearing the ring, promised he would never leave her. And with that, our summary concludes. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to get every new summary we post. If you want us to summarize any movie or series, write its name in the comments. Goodbye!